The bank pinged me at 9,012 p.m., the kind of ping that makes your stomach think it's falling down an elevator shaft. Unusual activity, it said. Large withdrawals from 529. The memo line on two of them read, equipment for music club. Our kids, Theo and June, were 5 and 7. The closest they came to a club was the daycare craft table where glue went everywhere. The 529 was their college money, the only thing that ever made me feel like the future didn't own us. I stared at the screen in my hand under the porch light that turns the yellow paint of our Detroit bungalow into a soft gold. If there was a fire, it was inside my chest. In the kitchen, Ivy hummed while she rinsed blueberries. Her tote from the community music school leaned against a chair, pins clinking on the strap. She looked up when she heard the screen door soft click. "Hey, stranger," she said. Her voice still made me feel like the day could be saved. "You eat? I kept you a plate." "What did you buy for the music club?" I asked. My voice came out like it does on the plant floor when I have to ask why someone pulled the emergency stop without a good reason. Steady, low. She blinked. "What?" "The bank flagged the 529, I said. I held up the phone. The numbers glowed like bad fluorescent light. 2 withdrawals. Memo says, equipment for music club. Her cheeks went pink and then back to normal, like she'd flipped a dimmer switch. "Oh," she said lightly, "I talked to your mom about using some of that for enrichment. The school had a sale on mics and stands for the kids' spring showcase." Leon said. "You talked to my mom," I cut in. "My mother still called the 529 the promise, and I don't say that because it sounds pretty. I say it because she does. She and Dad seed funded it when Theo was born. They showed me the first deposit slip like it was a birth certificate." I called to ask. "Yes," Ivy said, trying on a breezy tone. "At least I think it was your mom. Maybe I texted her and she didn't answer. Logan, I'm the volunteer coordinator. We have the showcase coming up and the school budget's a sad joke. The kids need gear." Leon found a deal. "How much?" I asked. She bit the inside of her cheek. It was fast. Leon needed to reserve it. "How much?" I repeated. She wiped her hands on a towel like the answer might be wet. 10, she said. 1,000, I said, even though I knew. It was the kind of reflex that tries to pretend the ground isn't giving way. 1,000, she said, eyes flicking up then down. "But it's for our kids. For kids." The room went silent in that way it does when you realize the noise you're hearing is your own pulse. I went to the back door and looked into the garage as if a pile of microphones might materialize because I wanted them to. June's purple bike leaned on the toolbox. Boxes from the last bulk shop trip towered by the chest freezer. Ivy's hatchback sat with its hatch open a crack like it had tried to whisper and failed. I stepped down the 3 worn steps and lifted it all the way. Inside were 2 flattened cardboard boxes for microphones, brand names I know from every church and bar rig I've ever seen. The serial number stickers were gone. You could see where someone had peeled them off, slow and careful. "Ivy," I called, but my voice sounded like it belonged to the boy I used to be when I was told to wash his hands and tried to hide the dirt behind his back. She came to the door, towel over her shoulder. "What?" "You bought microphones with our kids' college money," I said. "Where are they?" She shrugged like it was a reasonable question with a reasonable answer. "At the school, obviously." "Then why are the boxes in your car?" I asked. "Why did someone peel the cereals?" She looked past me into the garage, anywhere but my face. "Leon said to toss them," she murmured. "He has a guy who recycles." "You keep saying Leon like I know him," I said. "I've met him once. He's 30 and calls himself the program, like a magician calls himself the show. You're telling me I should feel fine about 10,000 going to a guy who peels cereals?" She bristled. "He's the music teacher. The kids adore him." "Where's the invoice?" I asked. "Receipt. Paper trail." "I'll get it from him," she said. "He's performing tonight. I'll ask at the bar." "At a bar," I repeated. She flinched because she heard it too. "A bar isn't a school." "Logan," she said, suddenly defensive, "the school's barely hanging on. I'm trying to make something for these kids. Not everything fits into your little boxes and spreadsheets." Everything in my life is boxes and spreadsheets. I design processes that repeat the same way every time. That's how you make a car door hinge work for 200,000 miles. That's how you make the hum of a line not sound like an animal in pain. "The 529 isn't your piggy bank," I said. "It's regulated. It's for qualified expenses. We put money in there because you like having a story where you're the responsible one," she snapped. Then her face softened. "I'm not misusing it. It's for education." For whose? I asked. I didn't raise my voice. The house felt so small, I thought raising my voice might break it like a glass. That night I lay in bed and tried to listen to the steam heat. It ticked and hissed like old pipes do, a rhythm I've always found calming. Ivy lay beside me, stiff as a plank. When her phone lit the ceiling, I told myself it was the usual scroll. When it lit again with a bright bar of notification light, it felt like a camera flash went off in my skull. I turned toward the wall, the darkness pressed like a hand. In the morning, I called the bank. The man on the line had the measured tone of a person who says hard things all day. The note says, "Equipment for music club," he said. 2,500 on Tuesday, 7,500 today, both to El Santiago. Who initiated? I asked. Zell, he said. From the linked checking, someone had linked it. The someone lived in my house. Is there a way to reverse? Not for peer-to-peer, he said. If you suspect misuse, we can open a case. Police report helps. Also, if the funds were used for non-qualified expenses, you'll want a tax professional. We don't give advice. Right, I said. I'm not asking for advice. I'm asking what happens when a person sets fire to a future and smiles about the warmth. I can freeze your 529 from further withdrawals, he said quietly. Yes, I said. I went to work because that's what I do when there's a problem. I stand in a place I know how to fix small things so I don't break big ones. We had a run on a hinge bracket for a new crossover. The line jammed every third unit, a misfeed that made a jarring ping. I put in earplugs and found the millimeters where the jig was off and asked myself whether I was the jig and the marriage was making that noise because I was off. It's a dumb thought. People use dumb thoughts as a bridge to get across a hole. At lunch, a push notification lit my phone. New story from Ivy. I hadn't seen one of her stories in months. She doesn't post often. The thumbnail was the corner of a stage, cheap lights making everything look better than it is. I tapped it. There was Ivy, camera low, cheering for a man with a guitar who spun the mic in his hand like he'd learned from TV. Leon. His jawline could cut fruit. The caption read, "So proud of the kid's teacher taking the stage. People think they know him. He's more. She tagged him." I didn't click through. The bar was called the Blue Thistle, a place I'd walked by 1,000 times on 3rd and thought, someday when the kids are older and we have a babysitter, we'll go hear live music again. And then, we never did. Between the applause, I could hear her laugh, the one from our second year when we still took walks at night to look at the river. She had a laugh like a bell. You could hear it over trucks. Seeing her hold her phone like that for Leon made something old and tender in me crack in a way I'm not proud of. Jealousy is loud the first 5 minutes. Then it gets quiet and mean. At 3, my mom called. Her voice always has the sound of a sweater, soft and warm. "You okay?" "Did Ivy call you?" I asked. "Me? No. I was making soup when your father said your voice in my head sounded like you needed checking on. Mother's intuition." "Mother," I said, and then I told her, not all of it, enough. "Oh, kid," she said. "She still calls me that sometimes and I let her because I want to be her kid. That money is for their future. It's sacred." "She said she talked to you," I said, and listened to the small silence where her breath should have been. "She did not," Mom said. "If she had, I would have told her, 'Ivy, I love you and you cannot take what isn't yours to take.' I would have said it sweet like I do when I mean business. You know my sweet voice that means business." I smiled because I did. The smallest smile. Then the smile died. "I froze the account," I said. "I need to see what we're owed." "You need a list," she said. "Dates, amounts, notes. You always did better when you held the facts in your hands." That night, I went to the music school. The building used to be a corner pharmacy. You can tell by the high windows and the way the door squeaks like it's used to candy. The front desk girl was new. She wore a beanie and had pencils in her hair. "I'm looking for Leon," I said. The beanie girl winced like I'd asked for yesterday's bread. "He resigned this morning," she said. "We got an email at 11. He left his badge in the box." "Resigned," I repeated, hearing behind the word all the things that word does when it's running away before the consequences knock. "We'll pull parents together next week," she said. "We're scrambling with subs." I looked at the bulletin board where the spring showcase flyer hung crooked. It had a stock photo of kids whose smiles were too big for Detroit. "Did he leave paperwork about equipment?" I asked. "Invoices?" She frowned. "We have receipts for the stands he bought last month. Nothing else lately." She looked at me more closely. "Are you Mr. Ramsey, June and Theo's dad? Ivy volunteers with us. She's kind of a legend around here." "What kind?" I asked before I could stop myself. The kind who can get 10 parents to string lights in an hour, she said. Also the kind whose playlists only play sad 90s songs. I like her. Me too, I almost said. Instead, I said, if anyone asks about mics and boxes, call me. I walked back to my truck thinking of Leon's mic-swinging hand and the boxes with their naked white squares where serial numbers should be. When I opened the door, a paper slid down from where I'd tucked it in the frame, the recital program from Christmas. June's name was next to Jingle Bells with a star in Ivy's handwriting. Theo had refused to play. He hid behind a chair and watched two girls pound out a duet with their elbows. I had had one of those moments then, the kind that sink anchor in you. The good kind, the kind that says, this is why. I put the program back where it came from and went home. I tried to talk to Ivy that night, and what we did instead was fight. There's no film over it when I replay it now. It was sharp, it was fast, it hurt. Leon resigned, I said when she came in, flushed, the scent of beer and someone else's cologne hanging on the fabric of her sweater like a shadow you can't sweep. Good, she said. That place doesn't deserve him. He's opening for a real act next month. The school uses him and then gets mad when he brings in new ideas. They hated it when he said we could live stream the showcase. They think cameras steal souls. They think budgets are real, I said, like gravity. I raised more money last fall than that place had seen in 5 years, she said. Do you have any idea how many bake sales I ran? How many cookies I burned in this kitchen? I have the blisters to prove it, I said, and held up my hand because the oven rack had taken a swipe at me in October. She set her bag down hard. You act like I'm reckless. I'm trying to build something. He's trying to build something. With our kids' money, I said. Processing. I stopped. It's a work joke, that word. It means I see the line is bad and I can't fix it with one tweak. I counted to 4. You love him, I said. The words felt like stepping onto ice you know is thin and hearing it sing under your weight. She looked at me with eyes that were both soft and stubborn. It's not like that. What is it like? I asked. He sees me, she said. He sees the parts of me the music wakes up. I went to college to be around sound, then I had babies and that part went quiet. Leon invited me to be loud again. There was a moment, a true, tender thing inside her words. I could feel it even while my hands curled. Then you should have told me you needed loud, I said. You don't take a future and pour it on a fire because you like the way it looks lit. She got close to me, too close. Ivy, I whispered, don't. We can fix it, she said. I swear. How? I asked, and I meant it. How do we fix? I took $10,000 from a fund with our children's names on it and gave it to a man who left his job and posts thirsty stories from a bar. I'll get it back, she said. He'll pay me back. Because he's an honest thief, I said, and I hated the line even as I said it. She flinched. Then she reached up and touched my sleeve the way she used to when she was asking to be let back in. Please! I stepped away not because I wanted to hurt her, but because if I stayed, the part of me that wants to make everything okay would have done something stupid like agree because her eyes were big and I am weak where she is concerned. I'm freezing the 529, I said. I'm opening a fraud case. I looked at her hands. She had a bruise on her knuckle I'd never seen. I don't know why it made me angrier than the numbers. Maybe because bruises tell you where a life is you don't live. The next day, I met with a lawyer. A friend from the plant recommended, a woman named Bryant who wore a suit that meant, don't mistake me. She looked at the printouts, the bank logs, the screenshots. She asked quiet questions with sharp edges. Do you have copies of her transfers? She asked. Screenshots of Zelle notes? Anything that shows intent. I have this, I said, and slid her the photo of the empty boxes, the story from the bar, the bank memos. I also have her saying out loud she used 529 funds for club equipment. Recordings? She asked. No, I said, we are not that house. She nodded once, like she liked the answer even if it made her job harder. You'll file 2 routes, she said. Civil, to recover funds. Administrative, with the school and their insurer. Detroit Public Schools has a fidelity bond for theft and dishonesty. If she gave money to a school employee under false pretenses, or if he solicited it, the bond might cover some. Also, a police report, even if you don't press for prosecution. It's boring and it helps. I hate all of it, I said. I know, she said, but the paper trail is your friend. That night, I went to the Blue Thistle. The chalkboard sign in front promised local talent and cheap Pilsner. Inside, lights hung low and warm. The smell was beer and old wood and the hint of citrus from someone's gin. Leon was on stage again, eyes closed like he was seeing the life he wanted behind his eyelids. Ivy stood near the edge of the crowd, face tilted up, rapt. She didn't see me. I watched for 3 songs and then walked outside before the 4th because I didn't want to watch him sing the song that made her cry into her hands. On the sidewalk, I heard a laugh and turned. Leon came out the side door, cigarette unlit in his fingers, Ivy on his heels. "Leon," I said. He startled and then rearranged his face the way people do when they need it to be something it isn't. "Logan," he said, all charm like we were buddies from the nonprofit who both knew how hard it was to get people to part with money. "Grade 2? You took money from my kids," I said. My voice didn't rise. The street made that sound cars make when tires hiss over old snow, even in late March when there is no snow. He laughed a little and held up his hands like someone might take his picture. "It was a loan. Ivy said it was fine. The school is useless at purchasing. I can pay it back." "When?" I asked. "With what? Tips?" It came out meaner than I meant. I've lugged amps for friends. I know music pays like wind. He looked at Ivy. She looked at him. That look between them hurt more than any word. "Next month," he said, and his mouth did that thing mouths do when they can feel the word is a lie and they say it anyway. "You resigned this morning," I said. He shrugged, a little defiant. "They don't want to grow." "They want to not be robbed," I said. "Don't call him that," Ivy snapped. "He's not." "Then what is this?" I asked and held up the photos. The boxes, the peeled cereals, the bank memos. "What do you call a man who tells a woman to peel the numbers off the boxes of mics she bought with money for children whose last name on the account is their father's?" Leon stepped closer. He was taller than me. His breath smelled like limes and something sweet. "Back off," he said low. "For me only. Ivy is here." "I know exactly where she is," I said. "Step back." The door guy looked at us like he thought he'd need to get involved. He didn't. I did what I came to do. I left. That may not sound like an action. It was. The week after, I did the paperwork. I sat at our table with piles of receipts, bank pages, a legal pad with columns, dates on the left, amounts in the middle, notes on the right. I typed the letter to the school board, careful for clarity and not cruelty. I met with the principal, a man with a permanent frown line that looked like had he used it his whole career. He rubbed his temples and said, "We had no idea. He took copies. He said the word bond like it was a rope." I went to the precinct and filed the report. The officer's pen clicked while he wrote, "Alleged." He gave me a number on a card the size of a stuck thought. Ivy moved into her sister's for a while. She asked to come by when I was at work to take clothes. I said yes. I boxed her vinyl and left it by the door with the wedding album we'd both pretend we're keeping for the kids. When I saw her name pop up on my phone, my hand shook in that way that feels chemical and dumb. I didn't answer the first 3 calls. The 4th time, I did. "Please don't do this," she said. Her voice was softer than the softest I know for her. "You don't need to go to the board." "I already did," I said. "You're going to ruin me," she whispered. "You're a mother who thought a man with a guitar was a bank," I said. "I'm not ruining you. I'm choosing the kids." Silence. Then she said, "Barely there. I got lost." "I get lost all the time," I said. "I use a map." We had to tell Theo and June something. We told them in the living room with Lego under the couch and a dust bunny the size of a mouse in the corner because we'd been so busy not looking at each other we hadn't cleaned. We said, "Mom's going to stay with Aunt Mel for a while." We said, "We both love you more than anything." We said, "School is still at 9. I watched their faces try to hold a thing that is bigger than their heads and wanted to set fire to the world so they wouldn't have to. I did not. I made spaghetti and burned the garlic and said sorry, which are 2 of the only things I know how to do that are always true. The school board met in a room that used to be a public library. The carpet was ugly to keep you awake. People breathed into microphones and everything echoed. Ivy spoke. She cried. She said the words intention and community and kids. Leon did not come. The board read their letter of findings 2 weeks later. Ineligible use of donor funds, lack of documentation, employee resignation. Their insurer's bond covered a portion of the loss under employee dishonesty. They sent a check to the school. The school, in what the principal called both right and rare, cut a check back to the 529 for part of the amount, with a note that said, "For Theo and Juniper, with our love for their future music." I cried in my truck, holding that check like it was a lifeline pulled tight enough to hold my weight. The rest came through slower. The court heard the custody case in a little room with bad art, Bryant, my lawyer, didn't say a lot. She didn't need to. We had our stack of facts. The judge looked at Ivy the way my mother looks at me when I say I'm fine and she knows I'm not. She ruled primary physical custody to me with joint legal and a schedule that bent but didn't break. She ordered financial transparency. She said the words best interest and the words consistent and the words consistent and the words consistent and the words stability. Those words felt like chairs you can sit in. The night after the hearing, I stood in the backyard under the old maple. The city hummed low around me like a machine taking a breath between shifts. My hands wanted a bottle, my brain wanted noise. I have an ugly history with drinking when things go sideways. It's not a story with a big crash, more like a slow slide that ends in a ditch you pretend is a parking space. I thought about the beer with lime on Leon's breath. I thought about my father's hand shaking when I was 11 and he switched to seltzer without telling us why. I went inside and opened the fridge and took out a ginger ale. I poured it over ice like it was something fancy, which is what you do when you need a trick to close a bar you opened in your head. Ivy texted that night. A long message. Memory lanes. The time we danced on the porch to a song from the war years because it came up by accident and we pretended to know the steps. The time Theo fell asleep in her lap at a Tiger game, earplugs in like a tiny blue statue of trust. The time she stood in a gym with no air conditioning and helped 20 kids clap on the 2 and the 4 because the teacher kept saying 1 and 3. The places where we were us. The places we fell apart. At the end she wrote, "I was wrong," the words that make some men feel tall. They made me feel tired and sad. I typed back, "I know, I was blind. I didn't press send. Some words you save for yourself." A month later, the kids and I went to the spring showcase. They let Theo sit in the front. Even though he wasn't performing, he tapped his foot and decided it counted as percussion. June sang off-key and too loud, and I loved her for it like I've never loved anything. The mics were good ones, the kind with cereals. I had the list of them in my pocket because the new teacher sent me a copy like I asked, and I don't know if that makes me petty or careful. Maybe both. After, in the parking lot, a woman with a girl in braids thanked me in a way that confused me until I realized she was the board chair and she knew what the check had meant. We stood by the trunk of my car looking at the little lives we drive around. "You did the right thing," she said. "I wanted to do the wrong thing," I said. "It would have felt better for a few minutes." She smiled. "That's how wrong things get you." Summer came to Detroit like a joke that lands every time. Heat off the sidewalks, fireworks at bad hours, water fights in the alley. The kids ate popsicles that stained their mouths red. I watched them run and thought about the shape of my anger. It wasn't a knife anymore. It was a tool you put back in the drawer. Ivy took them on Saturdays. She was careful about returns and pickups. She sent photos from Belle Isle, from the backyard of her sister's, where they built a fort out of sheets and regret. We texted about sunscreen. We did not text about music. One afternoon, I ran into Leon at a coffee shop near the plant. He carried a laptop and looked oddly small. He saw me and froze like prey. I could have said many things. I could have asked for money he didn't have. Instead, I said, "You're better than boxes with the cereals peeled." He flushed to the tips of his ears. "I'm sorry," he said, and I believed he meant it for himself more than for me. "I'm trying to be." "Good," I said. "Does Ivy?" he started. "She's their mother," I said. "She gets to be that. You don't get to be in that sentence." He nodded. He stood there like he was waiting to be told he could go. I didn't say it. He left anyway. The doorbell tinkled like a toy. By fall, the 529 statements showed the partial reimbursement and the new contributions I set up, small but steady. Mom and Dad added $20 and wrote a note with a heart next to June's name and a baseball next to Theo's. I taped it to the inside of the cabinet door where the cereal lives so I'd see it every morning and remember that my job is to feed them and build a bridge to later. I am not noble. I am not special. I am a man who chose a list over a bottle and a form over a fight and went to bed alone and woke up with my kids breathing down the hall and thought, I can do this. Some nights when it rains, I still hear the sound of that stage laugh, and there is a part of me that wants to go find it and break something. I don't. I go to the basement and do push-ups until my arms shake and the anger has somewhere to live that isn't my mouth. The other night, Theo asked what college is like. I said, it's a place where you learn and a place where you find out who you are. He said, I want to be someone who can fix things. I said, me too. He laughed because he thinks I already know how. Maybe that's the whole trick. People ask if I forgive her. I don't know. Forgiveness sounds like a gate you go through once and you're on the other side. It feels more like a door. I leave open when the weather is good and shut when it's storming. What I do know is I stopped covering my eyes. I looked. I acted. I didn't let the anger make me stupid. I let it make me steady. When I tuck the kids in, their hair smells like apples and cheap shampoo. Their future feels like something you can hold if you use both hands and don't waste your grip on the wrong things. If you opened a bank app and watched your kids' college money bleed into someone else's dream, would you rage first or build your case quietly? Where do you draw the line between supporting your partner's passion and protecting your children's future? If this story resonated, hit like, tell me your take in the comments, and subscribe for the next one.